Gala Games is proud to present Mirandus, an epic fantasy MMORPG set in a massive world ruled by 5 player monarchs. And in this game, you join with one of the monarchs, and then what you do is you can gain ownership of in-game assets as a central mechanic, and you can hold land deeds which allow them to claim parts of the wilderness and set up holdfast ranging from small farms to massive cities as you play the game. For more information, check out the blog from Gala Games. I'll leave a link in the description. You know, the other day I was sitting in my game room and I was thinking, what video game console have you plunked the most time into in your life? Like, how many hours, like, which console have you spent the most time of your life with? And I want y'all in the comments right now, before we even move on with this topic, to tell me what video game console you spent the most time in your life with. Like, which games did you play the most from what console? You know what I mean? Like, overall, cumulative put together. And for me, it's down to 2. PlayStation 1 and Super Nintendo. And I thought about it. I was like, did I also, what about mobile? Because I played a lot of DS games too when DS was around. But no, like after really thinking about it, I have spent more of my life playing a game from the Super Nintendo, Super Famicom game library than anything else. PS1 and PS2, I think were close. Don't get me wrong. Very close. But the Super Nintendo got a consistent 20 to 25 years of, of fun from me. And I want to do a video, and I don't know how long this is going to go. So we're going to go deep into nostalgia here of my Super Nintendo memories, at least from the early days when I was a kid. Not so much when I grew up and played it, even though I played it. I mean, this is a system I grew up with. I was born in 1984. I had a Nintendo. I actually had an Atari first, and I had a Nintendo. And then I got the Super Nintendo in 1990. It would have been Christmas of 1990. The Super Nintendo, my parents bought me the game system. And I have played Super Nintendo pretty much my entire life. My adolescence, through my teen years, through puberty, as an adult, young adult, through several, high school, college, several different, girls, several different deaths in my family, everything. Like, literally my whole life I played Super Nintendo. But going all the way back to 1990, I vividly remember seeing the ad on television for the Super Nintendo with Super Mario World, and my mind was blown. I mean, unless you were around back then, you're not going to really understand, although there may be something in your childhood that maybe is close to it. But seeing those 16-bit graphics and those new colors and how vibrant and alive it looked, I was like, dude, this is crazy. And when it comes to Super Nintendo, dude, like, I have so much love for that system. It truly is, for me, the greatest game console of all time. You could make an argument PS2, because PS2 had a great library along with the PS1 library. You could even make an argument for DS, because DS had the Game Boy Advance library. So you have great libraries combined, but singularly, dude, Super Nintendo was just a league of its own. And I remember I told my parents I wanted one. And I remember Christmas of 1990. I actually remember this, dude. I was 6 years old. I remember it was great. I mean, we had a Christmas tree. We had this train set around the Christmas tree that my dad bought me. This really nice train set. Big trains too, train tracks. And I remember there were so many presents there by the tree. Some of it was clothes. And some of it was like action figures. But I remember opening up and getting the Super Nintendo, and it was like that kid. Remember that 64? Like, it was like that. I was that kid, 6 years old. And I remember the pack-in game was Super Mario World, because back then when you bought a game system, it actually came with a game. without having to pay extra for it. Came with 2 controllers, or no, maybe it was 1 controller, because back then it was only 1 controller. It was 2 with the regular Nintendo. It's funny because my parents didn't understand. Like, think about this, for those of you who are younger than me or of my age group. Parents back then did not understand why you had to buy a new console. They assumed that because it said Nintendo on the title, that regular Nintendo was good enough and it would last forever. But they didn't know, like, we live in a world now where there are next generation consoles coming out every, 7 years? 6, 7 years, right? Maybe sooner, maybe later. And we're expecting the progression of technology to continue. And yet back then, parents couldn't even understand why there was a Super Nintendo now. So, I got 4 games. Super Mario World was the packing game, and the first game that I ever played on it, I was blown away. Super Mario Brothers 3 is probably my favorite Nintendo game on the classic NES. And it's one of the greatest games ever made, unquestionably. And I think it's still, the debate has always been what's better, Mario 3 or Mario World. And I like Mario 3 more. But Mario World is right there, bro. The premiere of Yoshi. I remember buying the game and opening it, and I remember pulling out the instruction. Well, not buying the game, buying the system because it came with the game. I remember reading the instruction manual, how it went through the story and told you what the enemies were, explained what the power-ups were, explained who Yoshi was. It was Yoshi's debut in a video game. Such a big deal. It was so big, dude. For a kid, it was huge. And I remember on the back of the Super Nintendo box, like the box of this for the game system, which I owned for years until my parents threw it away. I had the boxes for all my shit, bro. Maybe I should have kept it. It would have been worth some money. I remember there were all these games like Pilot Wing, Sim City, all these like early launch title games. Some sports game, I don't really remember. But they were all back there, and I remember just looking at them saying, I want to play each and every one of these games. There's something about that 16-bit era, with Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, and to a lesser extent TurboGrafx, like before the PS1 and 64 era, that those sprites and like the 2D colorful look to these games like Sonic the Hedgehog and Toe Jam and Earl and, Mario World, like I mentioned, some of the other games I'm going to get into now, like, they look so crisp. NES was almost, nice, but sometimes you'd play and it wouldn't really look like a person or it was lacking graphics. But, dude, Super Nintendo was like amazing. So, played Mario World that first morning. It was me, my parents, and my brother. And the second game that I played was a game called F-Zero. Now, F-Zero has become a staple franchise for Nintendo, but back then, F-Zero had just come out. In those days, the only staple characters were what? Mario and Kirby and Link, right? I think that's about it. Really, Mario and Link were first. And then Kirby and Samus, obviously, right? But like, it was before Star Fox, it was before F-Zero, and before Pokemon. But now F-Zero was out. And so it was this crazy game. And I swear to you, yo, I did not tell my parents to buy me these games. The only one I asked them for was Super Mario World. The rest of the games, they bought them for me, thinking I would like them. And they batted 100 on this Christmas, let me tell you. This might have been the best Christmas of all time, honestly, for me as a kid. F-Zero, when I first played this game, bro, this was like, as a 6-year-old kid, F-Zero was the fastest racing game in history. Obviously, there's way faster ones now. Obviously, Burnout and Need for Speed have blown those games out of the water, right? Even the newer Mario Karts blow it out of the water. But dude, F-Zero with like Captain Falcon, the 4 ships, futuristic world, Mute City, the incredible soundtrack. Dude, I was just such a good game. And I actually beat that game on Master Mode. I beat that game on Master, like, the whole game. I mean, not right away. I obviously had to work my way to that, but dude, like, I just can't, like, I have a smile on my face thinking about those days and thinking about how much I loved F-Zero. I still love F-Zero. I still pop it on from time to time, or I'll play the Game Boy Advance sequels. Love F-Zero. Third game I played was, and this all came for the same Christmas. So I got 4 games and the Super Nintendo. Well, Super Nintendo plus 3 games. Was a game called UN Squadron, which had come out as Area 88 in Japan. I didn't know that back then. And is an arcade shooter, like a side rail shooter. And it's a game that I had never heard of. My parents bought it. I think my brother picked it out. And to this day, this remains probably my favorite side shooting game of all time. I remember Super R-Type came out around that time. I remember there was obviously Darius. There were a lot of different like shooting games of those days, right? But for me, UN Squadron was it, bro. I saw these anime characters. I didn't even know what anime was back then, but they, you could pick them. You could pick your planes. You pick a plane. You upgrade it. You buy weapons. It was like futuristic but cool. Another incredible soundtrack. Capcom game. I think it was Capcom. Amazing soundtrack. I mean, all these Super Nintendo games had great soundtracks, yo. Down, 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 down. I just remember just, dude, dude, this was blowing my mind what I was seeing. I thought Super Nintendo was light years ahead of Nintendo, and I still played my old Nintendo afterward, but man, that Super Nintendo got a lot of my time. So the fourth game that I played is a game that nobody really talks about too much, and that would be Hyperzone. Hyperzone was a shooting game, but instead of it being um, like the side view or even the top view, it was like sort of a straightforward shooter, kind of like what Star Fox was, but it was before Star Fox. And it was this kind of futuristic game, like spacey game, where you're going in these like zones, and you have to blow up these blocks. But then these ships come at you. You got to fight these bosses. There was, I believe, 6 or 7 levels. I haven't played this game in a while. But I remember that was another game that I also enjoyed. Didn't really understand it fully at first. But of course, the good thing about this era is that all these games came with instruction manuals. And the manuals would not only give you backstory, but they would tell you how to play the game and what the power-ups did and even preview some of the bosses. And I remember I played this game and I beat this game. Not right away, but within the first year that I had this game, I beat it. I really liked Hyperzone a lot. And I just remember, like, I have so many memories, dude. Like, it's literally in my head right now. I remember I had this big plastic drawer, and that's where I had all my Super Nintendo games. And I also had other systems too, but we're talking about SNES right now. And I remember I grabbed the game, I put it in the system, powered on, then we go right in. No load screens, no DLC. Simpler times. Fun times. Nostalgia like crazy. The era of the pre-DLC video games is one that I will always hold dear because, like, you didn't have to do an update, a system update, when you got a new game and wait like 45 minutes or even 20 minutes. You put the game in, you push the button, you start playing. I miss that. And some games still do that, but you know what I mean? Like, a lot of them don't. And those were the first 4 games I got on Super Nintendo. And I remember later on I would get some of my favorite games of all time, like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Final Fantasy II, which was actually Final Fantasy IV. I would pick up games like Mario Paint. I picked up Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Super Street Fighter 2. I got all those. Mortal Kombat, of course. Mega Man X. So many games. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And I think I owned about, I want to say 30 something Super Nintendo games. And there were some that I was missing. Like I never had Earthbound, even though I should have. I played it later on in the emulation world. I never owned Chrono Trigger. I did play it, but I didn't actually own it myself. Super Nintendo had so many amazing JRPGs. Like JRPGs were almost like its strong suit. And also so many platformers. So many cartoon characters. Everybody from Speedy Gonzales to Yogi Bear got their own platformer. Roadrunner. They all got their own platformer on Super Nintendo. With these awesome cartoonish graphics. And, I mean, to this day, I still think A Link to the Past might be my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time. Maybe my favorite game of all time. Like, maybe. I gotta think about that. And so I will always hold the Super Nintendo near and dear to my heart. And I'm probably going to do a follow-up video to this discussing more of the games that I played. Some of my favorites. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments the system you played the most and what game you enjoyed the most from this era. And I'll talk to you soon.